I guess the main ingredient is passion and a real deep love for what we do.
In this episode of Getting Out of the Basement, we headed to the fabulous Fodera Guitars in Brooklyn, New York to see what true artistry looks like in instrument building. Needless to say, we were inspired.
Here we got some pretty cool machines actually. We have a lot of pre-war stuff and our Sun Ra bandsaw. Right. I mean, the way we manufacture is a nice blend of modern and old school. Vinny and the team come from a very old world craft. I mean, the way we make our basses is very similar to like how you would see people making violins or any acoustic instrument. It's really the same attention to detail and the same craftsmanship that's involved. At the same time, you'll see machines here that are modern, and really it's just to kind of cut some of the labor time, you know, of just cutting body blanks, things like that. So yeah, I mean, as you can see, we have a pretty massive wood inventory. Yeah, we got a lot of raw pieces out right now that are getting prepped to cut. Oh, something really cool actually back here. You're gonna like this, Marc. Yeah. Buckeye Burl.
Oh shit!
Yeah. Get this from California.
Yeah.
This is something that we've become really well known for.
Yeah.
Buckeye Burl tops. And this is how it comes in its raw state, which is pretty trippy. I mean, the figure's pretty cool. And this is basically the root of the tree. It's underground, and it's all like fungus and nature's really trippy stuff. So now we're in the Luthier Room. This is where a big part of the magic happens.
I can say with full confidence, if I were in charge of that job, I would say 1, 2, 3, and then this neck is just snapped.
It's scary to watch, I'm not gonna lie.
It's impressive.
It's incredibly impressive. You can hear in the background, that's Joey, another one of our co-founders, and Marc grooving.
Don't mess with this flavor. Don't do it.
Should we do the whole interview grooving? We should. Every instrument that we make goes through this man's hands. Whether it's a standard, whether it's a custom, Joey is doing the final setup. He's making sure it's right. He's playing every one of them. Throughout the day, you'll hear different genres. In the morning, it's a little bit 80s. Then we get Stevie Wonder towards the middle of the day. By the end, it's a little fusion. It's pretty cool.
When we first started the business, that was our main goal, to build instruments that would better than the instruments that we all grew up playing, and we wanted to make them better. So what we did, we searched out the most high quality woods that we could get our hands on. We spared no expense, whether we could afford it or not. As far as the electronics, the pickups, the hardware, everything was proprietary to us. And that's kind of what makes the instruments. And then myself, I'm a bass player. I've been playing bass since I'm 12 years old. And Vinny's a guitar player. So we started out, we called the company Fodera Guitars, because we were gonna make both. But Vinny was mostly in the shop, and I was always, before I started working on the instruments, I was out playing all the time and kind of being like a sales guy, like the ambassador for the product. People started calling me Joey Fodera. And guys used to think that me and Vinny were brothers. You know, not that we were close friends, we were friends. Vinny was working for another builder when I met him.
I was just working in the shop by myself and knock at the door, open the door, and there's Joey Lauricella standing there. He was curious about what was going on inside because he saw someone walking out with a gig bag on their shoulder, and he might have thought it was a rehearsal studio or something like that. He was just curious to see what was going on. He being a musician in the neighborhood. So he knocked on the door, introduced himself, and I showed him what we were doing. He was very surprised and interested in what was going on. So I let him in, and I showed him around, and we just struck up a friendship. He's that kind of guy, you know. He's real amiable and friendly with everybody. So we hit it off right away.
In the early days, Vinny honed his skills with a handful of other noteworthy builders, including Ken Smith and Stu Spector.
I met Ken through Spector. While I was working at Spector Guitars, Ken found Spector and came up to visit the shop. and made an arrangement with Stewart and Company to build the first Smith basses. And so when they came to an agreement, Stewart brought Ken over to me and introduced him and asked me to take on this particular work now. I had to copy a prototype that Ken had brought up, and then Ken sat with me for a long period of time, guided me so that I'd carve the first ones the way he wished them to be. Absolutely. He's one of the top custom builders on the planet. I mean, his instruments are all over the world, and they've been a huge influence to not only me, but other bass building luthiers. For a few years, it's working for Stewart. I felt I wanted to go out on my own. I was starting to develop my own ideas, and Ken knew my feelings because I was spending quite a lot of time with him. And so he kind of offered me, he offered to build a shop and have me work for him and continue my work, but building his instruments, and which would give me a little more creative freedom. I would be allowed to do some of my own work in the shop when I wasn't working on his stuff. And it was just a time for a change. I left Stewart on real good terms, started a small shop with Ken, and that's how I went on to the next chapter in my bass building career.
So just even Joey will play a bass on some days and something doesn't feel right about it. That feeling, you can't program that.
Right.
And that's something that is just, it's priceless, and we make sure we continue that here. A lot of the manufacturing steps that go into these instruments like this, I mean, this is stuff you would see someone who makes an acoustic guitar or, a violin,
right.
Not an electric bass guitar.
Right.
So, what we do here really is special.
After a fun-filled day of learning about the passion behind building these instruments, Vinny and Joey insisted on taking us to one of their fondest hangouts from their childhood, the legendary family-style Italian joint L&B Spumoni Gardens in the Bensonhurst neighborhood of Brooklyn. They had to roll me out of there. It was f***ing amazing. We were hoping to hang out with the newest partner and longtime supporter, Jason DeSalvo, but he was off doing his civic duty. Jason, you missed out, buddy.
And we brought Jason in, and Jason's little by little, he says it's going to be an ongoing process. It's going to take some time. We're going to have to hire some people. And we started handpicking all the people here that you see working here now. They love this place like we do. They love doing the work. They love everything about it. And that's our card to the future. These people are going to take Fodera into the future, which is great because, now maybe my grandchildren could play a Fodera,
When you really care a lot about something and you really love what you do, you'll go that extra, whatever it is, you'll find the little secrets that make a difference. You'll spend a lot of extra time with it. And just a lot of dedication, there's no one magic thing about it. It's just basically dedicating your life to something and trying to do the very best you can. And that's what we do every day here.